Let's wrap up week 2 of Sunbelt. It's Locked On Sunbelt.
You are Locked On Sunbelt, your daily podcast on the Sunbelt Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. All right, we'll continue to recap week 2. We didn't get to it all yesterday. ODU already making a quarterback change, and the Cajuns getting a little national TV love in a couple of weeks against Tulane. Hopefully the damage won't be too much with the storm coming into town this week. But let's wrap up week number 2. Georgia State got to win. All right, not necessarily pretty, but you got to win and move on. And Georgia State gets a 24-21 victory over Chattanooga. The U was 26 out of 38 with 2 touchdowns. Pretty good. Freddie Brock, 14 carries, 73 yards. Overall, Georgia State did rush for 153 yards. I'd like to see a little bit more of an average of 4.5 yards carry, but that's certainly not awful by any stretch of the imagination. Ted Hurst had 6 catches, 83 yards, and a touchdown. Game kind of went, back and forth. UTC led it 7-3 after 1. Georgia State had a 10-7 lead at half, and they each scored touchdowns in the third and fourth quarters. In fact, UTC led it 14-10. Georgia State made it 14-17. UTC made it 21-17, and Georgia State scores the final points about midway through the fourth quarter with 7 minutes to go. So Georgia State gets their first win of the season. Dell McGee gets his first win as the Georgia State head coach. They will continue their homestand. They get Vanderbilt coming up this week. So in 2 out of the 3 weeks, Georgia State playing some Power 4 squads. Didn't go well against Georgia Tech. And then they slipped by Chattanooga, and now they get Vanderbilt in, who had the big win opening weekend against Virginia Tech. But congrats to Dell McGee and the rest of the Georgia State Panthers for getting their first victory and not allowing, we should be winning this game by more, to get in the way of actually winning the ball game. Georgia State was favored by 9.5, and they found themselves in a ball game. And instead of worrying about they're not winning by enough, they actually went out and won the football game. Because sometimes you can press and end up losing the game. We've seen that all the time. But in this case, Georgia State does a good job of playing a good football game and pulling out a victory, a 3-point win over the Mocs. I don't know what to make of this thing. What was going on with James Madison? What James Madison was losing to Gardner-Webb 3-0 at half. James Madison was, wait for it, 35.5-point favorite. Now, again, Alonzo Barnett, the third, didn't have great numbers in the opening season win. Not particularly great numbers in this one either. 14 out of 22, 135 yards, no touchdowns or interceptions. In fact, they didn't even have a turnover. And yet somehow they squeaked by Gardner-Webb 13-6. They came out in the second half, put 10 points on the board in the third. Gardner-Webb had added a field goal, and then JMU, I guess, put the game away with a field goal in the fourth quarter. Were they just not interested? I'm just not sure. They get North Carolina. Were they already looking ahead? That is not for 2 weeks. So they were already looking. A lot of teams have bye weeks. It is early on in the season, but not that early on. Remember, these guys have been going at it since the end of July, beginning of August. So they've been going at it now 7 weeks or so. It's not the worst time in the world to have a bye week. You may get tired later on, but these guys, not the worst thing in the world to have one. A lot of them do. But why JMU did not play a better ball game against Gardner-Webb? I'm not upset because I didn't put any money on it, but I just seemed like a lot of points. I certainly didn't see a letdown. It's just one of those things where, if James Madison, wins, 42-10, they don't cover. And that's kind of the thing I was worried about. I certainly wasn't thinking that they were going to win 13-6. that for sure was not the case. All right. So now the teams that came up short, could be one of those seasons for South Alabama. They are expecting Gio Lopez back this week, but they go down to Ohio 27-20. Bishop Davenport played pretty well. He practiced all week long, so he was ready for it. I don't think this was a game time decision. He went 23 out of 37, 226, and a touchdown. Again, I love Fluff Bothwell. Led South Alabama in rushing, 10 carries, 70 yards with a touchdown. Braylon McReynolds is also expected back this week, reading from our guy Craig Stevenson in AL.com. Devin Voisin led the Jags with 5 receptions, 77 yards. Jamal Pritchett, 8 receptions, 67 yards, and 1 touchdown. South Alabama had a shot. They were trailing just 17-10 at half, and they actually had a shot at the end, and then just could not get it done. They actually held Ohio to a field goal to make it 27-20, and they did get the ball back with 3:11 to go, but they ended up losing 7 yards. So South Alabama 0-2. We'll see if they, can turn it around. It may be just that tough year for South Alabama, and they are playing Northwestern State. Let's see, they get Northwestern State Thursday night. So they're playing Northwestern State on a short week. We'll see if they get Gio Lopez and Braylon McReynolds back. Also, Memphis defeated Troy. I should say Troy lost to Memphis 38-17. This was a ball game that looked like it could have been pretty good. Again, Troy was like an 18.5-point favorite. One more score by Troy and they would have covered. But the problem is that Goose Crowder went down when he tried to lunge and did for a touchdown in the corner, banged up his shoulder. Not sure if he's going to be playing this week. They do get Iowa, which has been up and down so far this year. But Goose Crowder banged up his shoulder. At that point in time, I think it was like just a 7-7 ball game. It was tied, 7-7 ball game. And then Troy's offense had issues moving, trailed 21-7 at half, and then fell behind 31-7 before adding, 10 more points to their total. The backup quarterback was Matthew Caldwell, 11 out of 19, 113 yards, no touchdowns or interceptions. Not sure if did they have any turnovers? Troy did have 1 turnover. There was a fumble, but again, it could be a tough season for Troy. A lot more being replaced on the defense along with the offense. And it just may be one of those years for Troy where they're not up at the top of the Western Division. And Marshall played well for a half, 10-7 to Virginia Tech, trailing Virginia Tech 10-7 at halftime, but then Virginia Tech pulls away, outscoring the Herd 21-7 in the second half and pulls away for a 31-14 victory. Stone Earl, just 13 out of 36 for 131 yards. The air raid was not working. Stuck with him all game long. Apparently, there were some drops. That was an issue. 1 touchdown, 1 interception for Earl. A.J. Turner rushed 6 times for 103 yards. Christian Fitzpatrick, 4 catches, 73 yards, and a touchdown. Marshall is getting Ohio State. Not going to get much better for Marshall. And that is in a couple of weeks. So they got a couple of weeks to prepare for Ohio State. All right. Let's take a timeout. When we come back, apparently ODU already thinking about making a change at quarterback. We will do that after I tell you about the ultimate college football HC. Hey, Sunbelt fans. I want to take a moment to give you a heads up on a brand new mobile game that I think you're going to love just as much as I do. Ultimate College Football HC. In this amazing game and simulation, you get to step into the shoes of a head coach and lead your college football program to glory. Can you imagine being the head coach of the ULM Warhawks? From recruiting players and hiring coaching staff to overseeing training camps and handling school scholarships, you control every crucial detail of your program. It's all in your hands. Will you be able to handle the pressure? And here's what I really love about the game. You are responsible for calling offensive plays during the games. Your strategy will not only determine the success of your football season, but will shape the future and legacy of your program. Ultimate College Football HC is completely free, has no ads, and is 100% playable offline. You can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we have a special offer for Locked On Sunbelt fans. Use promo code LOCKEDONCFB, all caps, inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure to take advantage of this perk as it will get your team off to a strong start. To download the game, just visit ultimate-cfb.com, ultimate-cfb.com, or look it up in the app stores. Ultimate College Football HC. Begin your coaching legacy today. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Excuse me. We will talk Cajuns football here at the bottom after the next break. But ODU already thinking about making a change as they've just made too many mistakes offensively. We like the idea of Grant Wilson coming back. We like the idea of Ricky Ronnie and Grant Wilson teaming up again. I don't think these numbers indicate the kind of game that Grant had. 20 out of 34 against East Carolina, 192 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Has 12 carries, but only 3 yards. So sacked a little bit. Again, this is the kind of game that ODU could have won. East Carolina had 4 turnovers. The defense showed up. All right. The defense showed up. Jason Henderson didn't play, but the defense was there. ODU had 2 turnovers of themselves, a fumble and an interception. But East Carolina had 4 turnovers. Seems like East Carolina sort of dominated the game on the ground and almost in all aspects, and somehow the turnovers kept ODU in it. 26 first downs to 17, 466 yards to 287, rushing yards 183 to 95. I mean, East Carolina, 4 interceptions, all those turnovers, all interceptions. Got to be incredibly frustrating. Time of possession, not all that much different, about 5 minutes. In fact, about 4.5 minutes difference, 32-47 to 27-13. Penalties were a problem for ODU. Both teams had 10 penalties. The defense for ODU isn't playing poorly. ODU had a 7-6 lead at half. They were, it was a 17-14 game at the end of 3. And ODU could not get anything going offensively in the fourth quarter. And now is ODU's Grant Wilson banged up and won't play because he's injured? Or is he injured and he won't play because, well, he's not playing well enough? Ricky Ronnie apparently said at the press conference on Monday, we're going to evaluate everything and go with the guy who gives us the best chance to win. That's an issue. I was looking for big things. And maybe ODU was just hit by the portal too hard. This offense has not gotten flying just yet. It was doing a much better job early on last season. Maybe it's the idea that teams have the film. Teams know what to do. Teams know how fast they go. And they just haven't been able to take advantage this year of opposing defenses. Let's see what they did last year. All right. They lost to Virginia Tech 36-17. Beat the Cajuns 38-31. They did lose to Wake Forest 27-24. They had an odd ball game. I actually watched this game last year. Texas A&M Commerce 10-9. Crazy football game. But then they lost to Marshall 41-35. They beat App State with 28 points. They lost to James Madison in a game they could have won 30-27. Coastal, they lost 28-24. They got blown out by Liberty, but then beat Georgia Southern 20-17 and 25-24 over Georgia State. They even put up 35 points in an overtime loss to Western Kentucky. So far this year, they haven't put up 20 points on the board. They lost to South Carolina 23-19. They lost to East Carolina at home 20-14. Both games very winnable, right? Both games extremely winnable, and just not able to take advantage of the opportunities and or the situation in front of yourself. And that's got to be frustrating, right? It's one thing to get beat. It's one thing to what happened to App against Clemson. All right, we got beat. They were better than us. They're a lot better than us. We didn't play well. Move on, right? There was nothing App State could have done in that football game to change the outcome of the game. There wasn't one or two plays, right? It was an onslaught from the beginning. ODU, you punted away against South Carolina and not fumbled. We don't know if South Carolina is going to go down and score a touchdown, right? You're driving to get the winning score at the end. You throw a bad pass, ends up being tipped in an interception. You can't take advantage of East Carolina turnovers time and time and time again. One or two good drives, and that's a different ballgame. You're in control. And they did that again without Jason Henderson. He's expected back this week as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll see if ODU goes to the backup quarterback, and who that may be is a little bit. Let me see if we got this. Maybe up for debate. Did read Harry Minimum's column about where they are. They're getting Virginia Tech this weekend. They've done very well against Virginia Tech. That'll be a big crowd. Certainly not a lack of Virginia Tech fans in the Hampton Roads area. Let's see here. ODU will enter the game with some question marks, writes Harry. Monarch quarterback Grant Wilson was injured on the last play of the game against ECU. Ronnie does not comment on injuries because he says it could put his players in jeopardy. Redshirt freshman Colton Joseph is listed as the backup. Boston College transfer Emmett Moorhead has also been competing for playing time. We'll see if he's held out because he's injured, or do they make a change at the starting quarterback? That's kind of rough to say. We're going up against Virginia Tech, and I know they didn't play very well against Vanderbilt and the such, but that's a tough spot for the backup quarterback to be doing it, although it is at home. All right, let's take one more time out. We'll come back. Cajuns got some news. They're going to play a little bit on national TV in a big ball game against the Tulane Green Wave. We'll do that right after I tell you about 5 Hour Energy. Boy, did it come in handy for me on Monday. The schedule that I had at work was a little bit different. Constant motion, constantly moving. Didn't realize how tired I was until I sat down to make a phone call, and I needed one of these to get me through the day. I had one more thing to do. I had most of afternoon after lunch. Basically, my eyes were shutting as I was trying to make a phone call, and the 5 Hour Energy Tropical Burst helped me get through the rest of the day. No issues. I told you it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of work this week. It is Bourbon Festival here in Kentucky, and I have my 5 Hour Energy. I ordered two boxes of 12. So I got the 24 pack, and really looking forward to using them when needed. And it was surprisingly needed on Monday as I waited for somebody to answer my phone call. 5 Hour Energy is the brand hardworking people like you have trusted for over 20 years. To give them the alert, energized feeling they need to get through a busy, hectic day. You always know where to find 5 Hour Energy shots, right at the cash register at nearly every convenience, drug, and grocery store nationwide. Stock up on money-saving multi-packs to make sure you never run out of delicious, energizing 5 Hour Energy shots. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, that's the number 5, energy.com, and get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. The offer is only valid until September 30th and only on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. All right, Dave Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. We're wishing everybody well. My home away from home, if you will, Lafayette, Louisiana. This tropical storm Francine looks like it's going to turn into a hurricane. And for the first time in a little bit, Lafayette looks like it's going to take a direct hit instead of the Lake Charles, Houston area. It seems like it's going to hit Lafayette. Please, everybody, stay safe as much as you can. Very little has to do with this football game, but that's what's the pressing need now. Should be mentioned the Tulane Cajuns football game isn't until next week. Also, I'm not sure. I guess you could move it to New Orleans if it was this week, but that city, that Cajuns area, will rally for each other. They absolutely will. We're wishing everybody as safe as they possibly can be. It's not great news when Jim Cantori is showing up, and hopefully everyone will stay safe. Having said that, we do talk Sunbelt football, and the Cajuns in Tulane is a really big ball game. Tulane got the screw job with the officials, and you don't ever see Cajuns fans backing up Tulane, but they backed up Tulane. Awful calls against Tulane, against Kansas State, and Kansas State comes away with the victory. Tulane was certainly vying. Boy, if you beat Kansas State, they're certainly going to be among that group of 5 schools that are looking like they could get to the playoff. I guess they still can, although it's going to be tough with a loss for a group of 5 school. But Tulane looks really good. All right. They're a very good football team. And now the Cajuns are playing Tulane at home, and it's going to be on ESPNU. So they're going to get some national TV exposure in a couple of weeks. They'll see the stadium under construction. One of those things. It is what it is deals. I'm sure the stadium will be packed. Unfortunately, the TV is going to show the side where it's under construction, although I'm sure they'll have cameras coming around. Tulane, though, oddly enough, is playing Oklahoma. I mean, talk about a schedule. And we talked about this with Sunbelt teams. What an opportunity to bounce back. You lost a tough home game to Kansas State. What happens if you go into Norman and take down Oklahoma? Oh, that's huge. And so it's setting itself up to be a huge ball game. Cajuns and Tulane. It's going to be on ESPNU. And we talked about the opportunity for Tulane. Here is the Cajuns shot. All right. Cajuns are, goodness gracious, someone ranked the Cajuns like down like 8th or 9th. I don't know where the Cajuns are going to finish, but if you don't have the Cajuns as of right now in the top 5 of the Sun Belt, they got to be ahead of JMU. JMU just won 13-6 over Gardner-Webb, right? I would put Texas State ahead of them, and maybe that's it after what I saw from App State, right? I'm not putting anybody else ahead of the Cajuns as of right now. We're only basing it on this year, not how I think they're going to finish. I'm going to base it on what I've seen so far this season, and they have played incredibly well against Grambling, lesser opponents, and Kennesaw State. Went on the road, 14.5-point favorite, and covered that ball game as well. And they were missing offensive linemen, missing their starting running back, and it just didn't seem to matter. And so this is a big ball game for both Tulane and the Cajuns in a couple of weeks. Be a lot of fun for the Cajuns and UL to get that national TV exposure. And so we'll see if they can take advantage of it. All right. Again, the first thing that everyone's priority this week, get as much practice in as you can and, deal with the storm and the way the city and the community rally around it. I remember, Mark Hudspeth and company going to, maybe it was Billy Napier. The team went around and helped people that had their houses flooded. I don't even think it was a hurricane. I think it was a flood. And they went around and, was ripping out the drywall. And so people could get on with their lives. And so that's what will probably happen this weekend, right? The team will go around and see what they could do, helping people out who need it. And then they could concentrate on the game the following week. So hopefully everyone will stay safe. Got a lot of what I would consider my family back in Lafayette. People brought me in over a decade ago, and some of my closest friends that I still have today are in Lafayette, Louisiana. So making sure everyone's okay and really looking forward to that football game in a couple of weeks. Great opportunity for the Cajuns on national TV and a great opportunity to play Tulane, which is considered one of the top group of 5 schools. And this is where it is, because if the Cajuns somehow beat Tulane, if they do, they probably won't be favored. And that may have to do with what happens against Oklahoma with Tulane. But they probably won't be favored. But if they can somehow take down Tulane and then go on the road and play Wake, you getting votes? Are they going to get votes in the top 25? They may get votes if they beat Tulane. You beat Tulane and Wake, you're all of a sudden 4-0. You should be in the top 25. Based on what you've done this year, should be in the top 25. So we shall see. All right. Thanks so much for tuning in. The station is going like gangbusters, the channel, if that's what we're calling it, YouTube channel. Almost 1,440 subscribers. We still put out the Sunbelt, the Locked On Sunbelt signal to see if we get some coaches. We'll follow up today. I have a day off on Tuesdays. It's a very odd deal. The company's closed on Tuesdays. What can I tell you? Otherwise, I can record it in the evenings, but we do that full-time job that I cannot get away from and record during the day like I used to be able to. So we'll see if we can get some coaches on and bring you updates on their teams. All right. So again, thank you so much. We're doing great. Sunbelt is off to a very interesting start. Obviously, App State disappointing, ODU disappointing, ULM very surprising. Georgia Southern with a nice win on the road. I like that. Arkansas State's 2-0, Cajuns 2-0. Texas State with a dominating win on Saturday as well. They're getting Arizona State. That game is on Thursday. We will preview that one in a couple of days. All right. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Dave Schultz. You've been watching and listening to Locked On Sunbelt, your team every day. Have a great Tuesday, everybody, and we'll talk to you again on Wednesday.